Welcome back to the 127 Fit podcast. Today's guest is the Air Force football video coordinator and creative director. He is also a husband and father. Today's guest is Chris Miller. Chris, I want to welcome you to the 127 Fit podcast.
Oh, awesome. Thanks for having me on today. It's an honor to be on the year birthday of the 127 Fit podcast, and just really glad to have you on the Air Force Academy.
Absolutely, Chris. It's a pleasure to be here, man, and I'm excited to chop it up with you. The first question, Chris, that I have for you is, how do you start your day? Do you have kind of a specific morning routine that you like to stick to on most mornings?
Yeah, honestly, it's been ever changing with having a kid and things of that nature. But what I've done recently is I will wake up around 6 a.m. I'll check the social medias to see if anything we're doing trending-wise, the direction of what Air Force football can be doing, and then also my personal brand and things of that nature with my podcast. I'll go wake up my son Maximus, who is always a hoot to see in the morning, very loving. It's always awesome to get a nice pat on the back from him. Bring him, make sure change his diaper, get some clothes on him, bring him upstairs so he sees his mama. Put his shoes on, grab some muffins for him because he's a bear in the car if he doesn't get his muffins, and then I will go to work. That'll change a little bit when the season comes up, but that's been my go-to morning mantra, if you will.
Perfect. All right, so Chris, you have, and again, if you have more than one, please feel free to share. But is there a favorite book or book that you kind of like to gift often that you wouldn't mind sharing with the listeners?
So there's a book. It's Mr. Rogers, from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Okay.
It's sayings that he had throughout his life when he did the Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood television show, and just things that he lived his life by. It's a very small book. It's something you can get from, I think it's the Hallmark store.
Okay.
I knew we had one in Wyoming where I grew up, but I would always give that to people because it had a lot of really great life lessons in it.
Okay, perfect.
And it was very uplifting because he was an amazing human being, if you've done any research on him. But just to know, like, he was in the Navy, he wore the long sleeves to cover up his tattoos. And now it's come full circle to where my son's watching Daniel Tiger, which is basically the son version of the tiger in Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood when he goes to Fantasyland.
Perfect.
So I like to gift that quite a bit, but that's probably, I'd say, my go-to gifting book.
Sweet. Love it, man. All right, so do you have a favorite quote or mantra?
Honestly, the one quote and I saw it today here in the coach's office, leaders create the culture that drives behavior that produces results. It's actually from the Focus 3 podcast with I think it's pronounced the Kite Brothers. Recently, they just also introduced Urban Meyer, who is the former head coach at Ohio State. I think that speaks volumes in all sorts of walks of life, not only in football, but also in everyday life, because the leaders are going to create the culture that we're going to live in. I like to try and think of myself as a leader of the video people, of what I have going on. They're going to drive the behavior that produces the ultimate result that you're looking for. And I feel that you're always going to have a result that you're looking for that day, be it a goal or be it goals that you have. But I've been a very firm believer in that quote.
Love that. Yeah, and that's, just kind of like what you said, Chris. It all, I don't care if it's in a church setting, I don't care if it's in a school setting, I don't care if it's in a video setting or some sort of athletic setting. It all starts and ends with leadership, right?
Yeah. For
sure. Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I love that quote. So the final question, Chris, that I have for you as a part of the warm-up, do you have a favorite or most listened to podcast? And then along with this, because you just recently started your own podcast, make sure, please, that you share the name of your podcast as well.
Yeah, one that I really thoroughly enjoy listening to is the NFCEO, as well as one that I just really lighthearted, and it gives you a look into people's lives, is The Armchair Expert with Dax Shepard. That one I find very interesting because it humanizes everybody. When it boils down to it, we're all humans. We're all here for the same purpose. And, we just have different goals. But to hear other people's life stories and know that they've battled with, the same, if not other demons or things that you've dealt with in your life, really it humbles you, and it makes you really appreciate your life and the direction you're going. And then, my podcast, the Support Staff Podcast, I've been working on that. I got my 6th episode coming out here pretty soon.
Yep.
It is focusing on the support staff members of any college athletic football team, college athletic organization, from the video guy to the head trainer to the recruiting to the front office people. The people who are behind the scenes that you don't really ever get to hear from or see, but they're the ones that make the engine go.
Right.
And they really put together the product that you see out on the field that the coaches shape into game plan to beat the hell out of anybody else on the opposing team. So that's been a really big passion of mine to get that out there, because these people don't really have a voice, and they, the unsung heroes, they don't really look for a lot of attaboys and things of that nature, but I want people to know who they are so that they can connect with those people to get a better sense of what they do in their life as well as what they do for their team.
Absolutely, and I know you and myself kind of met here, I think it was a couple weeks ago, and you were sharing a little bit with me about your podcast, and I told you, dude, like, that's a great opportunity you have, and I think it's kind of an area where there's not a lot of podcasts, out there in regards to kind of behind the scenes of college athletics and things of that nature. And I remember telling you, like, dude, keep it up, because that's awesome. I think of like strength coaches and these the guys that are the assistant strength coaches and the assistant athletic trainers and all this stuff. Like, I played a year of college football, and kind of all that behind the scenes, like they're not out front. You know what I mean? They don't really get a lot of recognition, and most of those people aren't really in it for that, which is great. But to kind of shed some light on those behind the scenes in regards to college athletics, I think it's awesome, man. So now, in regards to your podcast, where can the listeners from the 127 Fit podcast find your podcast? Is it on iTunes and all that? Or?
Yeah, so I use the Anchor app.
Okay, perfect.
And that distributes it to every podcast basically outlet that's out there.
Okay,
it's on Spotify, it's on Stitcher, it's on Apple iTunes.
Okay, perfect.
Things of that nature, and also on the Anchor app too. So you can download that and listen to it.
Great.
But it's been awesome.
Yeah. Now, before we move on, since we're kind of here on the podcast theme and things of that nature, what kind of, from your perspective, Chris, like, why are podcasts becoming such a big thing, and what's the value in the platform of podcasts?
I think the value in the platform of it is people, when the radio was still around, people really enjoyed radio.
Absolutely.
And I did radio in college. I had lunchtime with Hoagie.
Okay.
I had a lot of crude things I probably said on that, but it was something that I really enjoyed, and seeing the transformation of that, where everybody's on their phone, they're not in their car anymore. They have their earbuds in, they're listening to that. They like to have that human connection or human contact, and to be able to have it so many different things, from murder mysteries to what we're doing here on the 127 podcast. There's such a broad spectrum, and everybody listens to books on tape and things of that too. Right. So this is just another easy venue, I think, for people to listen to, and it's caught on fire. And I was doing some research. I think the average podcast listener will listen to 6 to 7 podcasts a day, and that's astounding, because if you think about it, that's 6 or 7 radio shows in one day. And you can have it on at work, you can have it on anywhere, you can download it to your phone, you can listen to it on your computer. It's just amazing what technology has brought us to. Absolutely. And where we have gotten to. And I think that's a huge reason why people thoroughly enjoy listening to podcasts is the human connection and just it's nostalgia, if anything.
Yep, cool. Yeah, and I just, for my perspective and my end of things, is that, I can be, food prepping, I can be working out, I can be doing other things, being productive, and also learning and taking in information through the podcast. And that's why I really love it, because it's like I'm killing 2 birds, so to speak, with 1 stone. So that's really, I feel like one of the valuable things about podcasts. You don't have, for the most part, you don't have all the ads. You don't have to listen to all the dumb commercials and stuff. It's like, dude, whatever you want, you can get it through podcasts, and again, it's that learning experience while you're doing. So,
and honestly, too, it's something that's very cost effective.
Absolutely.
So if it's something you're passionate about, like our setup here, you have a laptop, you have a microphone, and you have 2 people who are just conversating about what they want to talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's a great point. Great point, Chris. All right, so let's kind of transition, Chris, into your backstory. I wanna just kind of dig into kind of like life for you when you were growing up. Where did you grow up? And kind of what was that childhood like? Were you involved in extracurricular activities, sports, outdoors, brothers, sisters, all that type of stuff? If you don't mind sharing with myself and the listeners, Chris, where did you grow up and what did that childhood kind of look like?
Yeah, I lived a very fruitful life, and I owe it all to my mom. She's been there ever since, she was 19 years old when she had me. We grew up in Iowa. I was born in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. We lived in Rock Rapids, Iowa until I was about 9. My parents separated there. We moved to Larchwood for about 2 years with my grandfather. And then we moved to Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where my mom got a job at the South Dakota State Penitentiary. Really interesting situation there is she had to do all the training, and the training guard who was training them all on the sniper range the one day, there was like 8 guys and 3 women. He put his hand over my mom's head and he goes, what's different about this woman right here? And they're just like, well, she's a woman, all this kind of. He goes, no, she just kicked all your butts in rifle training. So that was always kind of an interesting thing. I told my girlfriends that, like when I was growing up, I said, if you're not careful, my mom probably will shoot you down.
That's awesome.
But no, we moved around quite a bit. So I think that's a big reason and a big part of my personality, why I'm easy to talk to people or easy to get along with others, is that I've been in a lot of different schools, a lot of different settings, around my family a lot, which is really a big thing to me is my family. We lived with my grandfather. We moved to Sioux Falls. We didn't really live with anybody. We lived there for, I think, about 2 years. And then we moved to Pierce, South Dakota, where my Aunt Cindy lived. She lived there with my 2 cousins, Sean and Ashley, and we grew up there. And, I mean, that's where a good majority of my life was spent. I'd say probably about 5-6 years. And then, or no, actually 2 years. It seems crazy.
No, it's okay, man. It's hard to look back and be like, okay, how long was I there? Especially if you moved a lot.
So yeah, and it's kind of crazy putting it all in perspective because I think I was about 13, 14 when we moved to Wyoming. So yeah, we met my dad, my stepdad, who I call my dad, Kevin Miller, in Pierre. My mom met him there. I remember the night that they met, we ended up being with my Aunt Cindy. They went to, I think, the Fireman's Ball, hung out, and then ever since then, he's just been a mainstay in my life and a huge rock for me, along with my mom. But we moved to Gillette, and I was like 13, 14. I think that's 7th grade, maybe.
Okay.
Went to 7th, did all of my junior high school there. I mean, I was very active in sports. I was very active in, the creative community because it was just getting started, like Photoshop and all the Adobe products. Very interested in art, a lot of different extracurriculars. And it was an amazing place to grow up. I mean, Wyoming is a place that not a lot of people know about unless you're in this area. Like, heck, my wife didn't even know about it when I even met her in Houston. So, grew up there. Graduated in 2003, went to Black Hills State for a little bit. Was going to play football there. Walked on for about a week. Decided I'd really liked my body and I wanted to keep it in shape for a while. And I worked daycare. So I worked for the daycare at Black Hills State University. I was originally going to be a teacher, a kindergarten teacher, because I'm very passionate about kids and making sure that they're brought up the right way. And worked at the daycare, and about a month into working at the daycare at Black Hills State, they walked in, and they had gotten into a huge lawsuit with Georgia Tech about the yellow jacket that they were using, because they basically stole the Georgia Tech yellow jacket. So Black Hills State had to change it. They came into the daycare. They go, do you have any males who work here? Because we're looking to find somebody to be the new mascot. Well, I was the only worker there, so they asked me, they're like, would you like to do this? And we're going to pay you pretty dang well. And I said, sure, why not? So I had to look at them when I was thinking about this, but I have a bunch of photos from a photo shoot of me with the mascot head and being in the new mascot uniform. I did that for about 3 years. Went to school there, and honestly, after working at the daycare through junior high school, and college, I just got burnt out on kids. And there's the bratty ones, and those are the ones that really kind of taint you. But decided I was going to transfer to the University of Wyoming in 2006. A lot of my credits didn't transfer. My grades dropped at Black Hills State because I didn't really care. Picked it up at Wyoming. got a communications bachelor's degree in communications, public relations. Was going to do some sports stuff. That's what I did primarily in college.
Okay.
Worked for the marketing department at University of Wyoming Athletics. Did video there on the side because we get paid to do it and get T-shirt and gear and you get to be part of the football team. Who wouldn't want to do that?
Right.
Little did I know it'd be my career further on down the line. But graduated in 2010. Got right out of college. Really wasn't a lot of jobs. So I worked at American Eagle and a cell phone store in Cheyenne, Wyoming. Sold jeans to preteens. Basically,
That's awesome,
I've never felt so horrible in my life when you're sitting there and they're like, do I look great in these jeans? You're like, you look perfect. You should buy 3 pairs of those.
Right.
So did that. And one day, my boss, who is the video coordinator at Wyoming, he goes, what are you doing? And I go, honestly, I'm just trying to make ends meet right now. And he goes, come be my assistant. And that was right in January 2010, 2011. He's like, come be my assistant. So I went to University of Wyoming, was assistant. He showed me everything. I knew some of it because of some of the training that I had when I was still a filmer there. But he showed me more of the inside, workings of everything and how it all worked, budgeting, things of that nature. And then 3 months later, he comes up to me. He's like, hey, I have something to tell you. And I was like, oh, crud, I don't have a job anymore.
Right.
He goes, I'm going to go do an underwater videography job in Thailand. And he goes, I leave in about a month. And he goes, I'm going to tell them that you should be the head guy. So 4 months out of college, I go, okay, here we go.
Yeah.
I, trial by fire. I had a lot of things thrown at me because I screwed up so many times.
Right.
A lot of names called, but this will be my 14th year of doing this, and I wouldn't change it for the world. It's gotten me to the places I wanted to be. It's gotten me to places I never thought I would dream being. Professionally, started out at the University of Wyoming. Did coaches film, did the highlight films, traveled with a team. Was there for I'd say 3-4 years. Went to University of Houston after that. Worked there for about 3 years. Met my wife in Houston. Met on Tinder. Shout out to Tinder. But met on Tinder. Now we've been married 4 years. Been together 5. We had our 4-year anniversary July 3rd this last year.
Cool.
So, and then right as we were getting married, I got a telephone call from Coach Calhoun asked, want to come up to Air Force? And I thought, this is a perfect opportunity. I've heard this is a place you can retire. This is a place that you can grow old. And it's a place that a lot of people really sought after.
Right. And
I can understand. I mean, we look out the windows and you see the mountains. You see huge grass fields.
It's pretty good, isn't it, dude?
It's pretty amazing. So moved up here, got married, went on my honeymoon for I think 2 weeks. As soon as the honeymoon was over, got back to Houston, hopped on a plane, flew up here, not hopped on a plane, got in my car, drove up here, 24-hour trip, and been here now. This will be my 5th season with the Air Force Falcons.
Cool. All right, so that's we got kind of a big picture kind of look of where you're at today. So I just want to kind of take a couple steps back, Chris, and just kind of unpack a few things along that journey. So now in regards to because for any listeners that have listened to several episodes, you probably already know this, but I was born and raised in Iowa. I went to college and graduated from the University of Sioux Falls, and I lived in South Dakota for like 7-8 years. So there's a lot of similarities we have. Now, one thing about the Midwest that most people probably know is hunting is really big in the Midwest. So was hunting kind of a part of your upbringing or not?
Yeah, especially when I moved up here.
Okay.
My dad's father was a game and fish. He was big in game and fish. It's really fleeting my mind right now, but he was really high up in the game and fish with the state of South Dakota, being in Pierre with the state capital and everything there. So it was a really big part of our life, and we learned a lot about conservation. We learned a lot about fishing, hunting, things of that nature. I mean, I can count on my fingers and toes 3-4 times over how many times I woke up at 3 a.m. to go to the Oahe Dam and troll and fish for walleye, and the amount of tagged walleye I caught, and it was a huge part of my life. And hunting too, we did a lot of sage grouse, we did a lot of dove, deer. Never really got to do any of the elk hunting, anything with Wyoming, just with school and career. But it's a huge part of my life, and I'm very thankful for it because it created a lot of good connections with my grandfather, who passed away 3 years ago now, and my dad, Kevin, that I will never ever be able to replicate or duplicate, but it's things that I want my son
Absolutely.
to be able to do, and it's a huge bonding area. And
Right.
it really, I feel, sculpted me into the person I am today.
Cool. Now you mentioned kind of the impact that your stepdad, who you call your dad, had on your life, kind of as you were unfolding, unpacking your story, Chris. So would you just maybe just share a little bit more about your stepdad?
Yeah.
And just kind of like, because there's a lot of different situations that we go through in life, and when you're a young kid and you don't necessarily have that father figure, especially when you're a boy, that can really be hard. And I see that as a school teacher. I've seen that with friends growing up and things of that nature in our culture. So just kind of share a little bit more in detail, if you wouldn't mind, Chris, just like that immediate impact that your stepdad coming into your life had upon you.
Yeah, and I'm going to take it one step further to just kind of give you a whole rundown. My mom had me at 19.
Right.
At that time, the guy that was my biological father wanted nothing to do with me.
Right.
And that's just because he was really into drugs, and he led a really crazy lifestyle. It wasn't until recently, I'd say about 32, I actually found out. I mean, my mom told me when I was 10, but I didn't really, I guess, grasp it.
Yeah.
But coming to find out what happened with Max, some of the complications he had, we wanted to make sure he was going to be good health-wise. So reached out to my mom. She said, it's actually Greg Hendrickson. So I was like, okay. So reached out to him, and, I basically told him, I said, I'm not looking for anything. I just want to know what your health history is like. I go, we can have a relationship, but it's nothing to where I think it's going to be a father-son relationship, because I have a dad. And his name's Kevin Miller, and he's raised me from what I have, and my mom even more so raised me to be the person I am today. But 19, he doesn't want any part of us. My mom gets a paternity test. And he told me this story, and she told me the story too. He sees me in the doctor's office when they're doing the paternity test, and his wife at the time says, that's not your son. And he knew it was, and my mom even saw that, and it just broke her heart to see that he wanted nothing to do with me.
Right.
So my mom gets married to Tim Hogendorn. He was my adopted dad for a while. My mom and dad got divorced when I was 9. That's when we moved from Rock Rapids to Larchwood, and that's when we started making our trek out west. When we met up in Pierre with Kevin, I mean, that was the game changer. I knew from meeting him as a kid, like, this guy is going to have a huge impact on our lives. And we officially changed, my sister and myself officially changed our last names to Miller when I was 23 and she was 18, because we were 5 years apart. So we didn't have to go through any legal battles, things of that nature. So we're both Miller now, and that's a name that, to quote a Dierks Bentley song, that's my last name. And I hold that song pretty near and dear to my heart too, because I really have a lot of gratitude and respect for that last name, and I hope that I can live up to the expectations or what he has put out there, because he's an amazing man. Through some of the hardships we've had, growing up with me, and it's just a relationship that I don't think I could have ever dreamed of. And it's a relationship that I hope my son Maximus and I have, because I hope we can even come close to it, because I feel like I'll fall at expectations, like dull in comparison, but at the same time too, you can't have any type of comparison. You have to have your own kind of life when it comes down to it.
Now what's his first name?
Kevin.
So what's just like that one thing, and I know it's hard because there's so many experiences you've had with him, but just with Kevin and just kind of like what he's meant to you as like father son, what's that one thing or maybe that one quality that you hope that you can kind of live out in your life and pass on to your son?
Unconditional love. I think that's the one thing, because I love the heck out of my dad, and that was one of the big things that he showed me, and that I truly respect out of him. Sorry.
No, you're good,
I
man.
don't need to get choked up.
You're fine,
that just means a
man.
lot to me. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah.
So cool. Unconditional love. All right. So so you go off to college, Chris. You have some different experiences. Now I want to touch on, because one of my previous guests went to the University of Colorado in Boulder, and he ran out the buffalo or whatever. So he's kind of part of the mascot team, however you word all that. So will you just kind of share a little bit about, now was this this was at Black Hill State when you did the mascot thing,
yep.
right? What was kind of like, what was that kind of like? And then Black Hill State, is that Division II?
It's NAIA.
Oh, okay.
Yep, they're
But
an
just
NAIA
share a little bit more about that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, it was really interesting because I had seen people do it, and I really had no expectations of what to do. And I asked them, I said, "What do you want me to do?" They said, "Just make people laugh."
Awesome.
So I'm a big yellow jacket running around out there, and it was crazy because I treated it just like a game, a football game. I put on the full Under Armour, I had the sleeves so that you couldn't see the skin. I didn't want kids knowing that it was a human. I had a headband. I had a full, mock turtleneck that went all the way up, and it was pretty awesome because you got to be somebody that was bigger than life to a lot of children. And like I said, that was one of the things growing up, having my stepdad, Kevin, and I really wanted to help kids and help people and make people happy, because there's so much sad stuff that goes on in this life, in this world, and I try and focus more on the happiness of everything than the negative. So
So you've referred several times about kind of just wanting to help kids and things. Do you think that really came through that relationship with Kevin and things of that nature, where you just kind of he had such a profound impact on your life that you kind of just told yourself, maybe verbally or just kind of internalized the fact that man, when I have an opportunity, because Kevin has done such an amazing job in regards to loving me and being that positive influence in my life, I want to do the same for kids. Do you think that had a big impact on that?
Yeah, and I don't think it's only Kevin. I also think it's my mom too. Because she's basically a female version of me when it boils down to it. And the two of them combined made me want to do more and make more of a bigger impact in my life than what I knew I was doing. So it really moved and shifted my life in a different way. Knowing what my mom had given up for us, growing up until we met Kevin, and then what the impact Kevin had on our lives too. So just knowing the impact and the change that the two of those had on my life and will forever have on my life is always going to be a big thing. And I don't think I'll ever be able to repay them, but I'll sure as heck try.
For sure.
To do what I can with grandkids and, any awards I win, I always dedicated to them and my family and things of that nature.
Yeah. All right. So you get into, this being into the video and all this type of stuff. And again, now this kind of started not at Black Hill State, but this happened at the University of Wyoming.
Yep.
Okay, so you graduate, you're kind of just trying to pay the bills. This gentleman at the University of Wyoming says, "Hey man, what are you doing? Why don't you come work for me?" He kind of just taking off, going do something, has another opportunity, and he basically turns this video coordinator job over to you. Is that correct?
Yep.
Okay, so then you just kind of jump in now. Obviously, anytime you're kind of just trial by fire and just jumping into things, and it's kind of wild and crazy in the beginning. But once you kind of righted the ship, did you really just find kind of a passion for that type of stuff then, Chris?
Yeah, and honestly too, I think stemming back to helping people out, it's being a part of something bigger in yourself and being part of something that has a immediate impact on the youth and the young men and young people of who are going to go before us has a really rewarding thing for me and a really huge factor for me. And being part of a team is always a big thing for me through high school, junior high, all the sports teams I played with, all the, acting classes I took, plays and things that I was in. It's always the bigger picture is what I looked at. That job really catapulted me into helping others. And I've worked with a ton of different athletes. I've worked with a ton of different coaches and a ton of different creatives and video people that have gone on to do amazing things with their lives, and to see that is more rewarding for me than to win any type of like video award and things of that nature.
Right. Yeah. Now I want to touch on a little bit here, just people skills in general, because as I look at, you know, kind of the generation or two behind us, you know, and again, being a school teacher, I see a lot of young kids that they just don't have people skills. They don't know how to have a conversation with somebody, specifically an adult. They don't know how to look in their eyes, you know, all this type of stuff. So what is, and I know it's very important and very valuable, but for you kind of being in your position, being a leader, kind of in the unit and the part that you play here at the Air Force Academy, how important is it for you to have those people skills, to be able to interact, to be able to maybe de-escalate a situation and just really connect not only with adults, but you also have a lot of cadets here that help you as well. So just explain a little bit, share a little bit the value of people skills, being able to talk, being able to listen and work with others.
It's huge.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, they are taught up on the Hill military aspects and how to do everything military wise, and when they come down to the video area, I try and make them a well-rounded person.
Yes.
Because overall in life, it's not always going to be so cut and dry. Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. No, ma'am. No, sir. There's going to be a lot of situations to where you're going to have to, you know, like you said, de-escalate some things or up-escalate some things to make sure the importance and what it is to that person. But human relationship skills are a huge thing that you need to have moving forward in this life, because I feel like you're saying majority of the generations that we have now, they're stuck to screens. They're stuck to Twitter conversations, and then when it gets to meeting those people in real life or meeting the, it's, hey, how you doing? Like really monotone, kind of not knowing what to do, because you're really a keyboard warrior behind your phone or behind your computer, because the power of the internet really has given a lot of people superpowers, if you will. Because they'll say things on the internet, they'll do things on the internet they'll never touch in real life. And that's why like cyberbullying and things like that are huge, and it's sad to see that. But you know, talking with a lot of the cadets that I have, I sit them down and I have one-on-one interviews with them every year, and I ask them what do they want to do, how are they doing in school, how are they doing with their family, because a lot of these kids, they'll either A, they'll have a great family and they'll have an amazing life. B, they'll have a family and not really like the family. Or C, they'll not even have a family or not really even have a great life. And the main reason why they came here is to give themselves that opportunity to have an amazing life. Because with the Air Force Academy, they give you all the tools to have that amazing life. You just need to perfect those tools in your human, you know, relation skills so that you can be an amazing person in life. And I try and do that down here. And you know, I keep it really lighthearted because I want it to be a family aspect, and I want it to be an area where they can trust me, because ultimately I'm trusting them with my job every day to film practice and make sure they get everything. So I want them to know that I trust them, and if they know that I trust them, then they can earn, you know, I can earn their trust, or they can earn my trust in the, you know, whole flip side of schemes, because it's terrifying. Like I have 18 to 21 year olds that, you know, 14, 15 kids that I'll put them in the places to make sure that we're getting it. I'll teach them how to do it. And then I'll say, now make sure you get it and don't use your phone during practice so that you're getting everything. Because ultimately when it boils down to it, the video department is the base of a football team. Without video, without anything to break down, without anything to set up for the opposing team, there's nothing to game plan or prep yourself to beat that opposing team. So, you know, I tell them, you're a very intricate part of this team. You may not think it. Coach Calhoun backs me on that. He'll come and talk to the filmers. He gives them meals. Has, you know, things where they can come over to my house, hang out. So they're not on the Hill the whole time. They can wear civilian clothes and come out and see my family.
That's awesome.
And that's one of the things I do, too, to make it more real for them, is show them, hey, I have a living and breathing family, too, that I'm trying to provide for, and this is why I'm trusting you with. So, you know, there's times where I do have to get mean, and I don't like to, but I say, you're really screwing up. You missed 4 plays. What were you doing? Oh, well, you know, excuses are like, you know, everybody's got one. So there's times where I'll come down on them, but I think these kids really respect the heck out of me, and they respect my job, and they respect what we're doing, and I think in turn they respect themselves.
For
I
sure.
think to have the human communication, you need to respect yourself, because if you don't respect yourself and what you're putting out there to people, you're really not going to be able to communicate with anybody.
Beautiful, man. Great words. Now, being a part of, I grew up playing sports, football, all that type of stuff, and football. Maybe there's probably wrestling, and maybe there's another sport or two, but football in our country is God, and football is a very, very, very intense sport. And then you just take that intensity when you're in a Division I setting like you have been for, a lot of years, that intensity only is magnified and is much greater. So what I kind of want to extract from you, Chris, just like you kind of turn things over to, the cadets in regards to video and stuff, and you're just like, man, it's kind of like your job's on the line through them. Same thing with the football coach. Same thing with the strength coach. Like, their jobs are on the line in regards to the students, the athletes, all of that, however you want to word that they're kind of trying to coach, teach, and things like that. And their performance on the field is a direct reflection of those coaches. So with that intensity, with the expectations here as a Division I program at the Air Force Academy, how do you deal with that when, like, the head football coach, comes to you and maybe puts an expectation on you? When let's say the head strength coach comes to you and puts a certain expectation on you, how do you as an individual, just separate from maybe like being kind of the head of video and stuff, just you personally, how do you internalize that? How do you deal with that? How do you work through those high expectations?
When they do come to me with an expectation or something that they want done, I'll sit down with them, have a meeting with them, set realistic expectations, listen to what they have to say first, and then set realistic expectations, because ultimately what they're asking is very obtainable. I just want to make sure that we have it all game planned out.
Yes.
And strategized. And I mean, funny words to use when you're on a military base, but but no, it's something that I deal with on a high priority. With people in my profession, you're very rarely ever going to know. And if you get a no, there's usually a hard reasoning behind that, because it's something that we truly can't do, or something out of our expectation or out of our limitations that we're able to have. So, I mean, most recently, I've been working on this quote for, I say, 3 years now, for safety expectations of video and things of that nature. I've been working with Coach Calhoun on it, who's been very proactive about it ever since what happened at Notre Dame, where the filmer fell down in a scissor lift and ultimately died.
Wow.
And I told Coach Calhoun, I'm very serious about this, and he goes, yeah, me too. So if it ever gets above 15-mile-an-hour winds with our scissor lifts that we had over the last 4 years, they'll come down.
Okay.
There's no questions asked. He looks at me. He's running towards me majority of the time, saying, get them down. He tells me if they don't ever feel safe that they can come down, things of that nature. So the quote that I've been working on for the last 3 years is a $250,000 quote for these things. They're called 8K master cams. Basically, you and I sitting side by side, we'd have two screens in front of us and a master cam pole that will go up 50 feet in the air, to where we're sitting on the ground, safe and sound, while we can still film practice from up in the air. We recently just got that implemented. We're waiting on the bills and things to go through, but it's something I've been working on very, very religiously with Coach Calhoun to make sure that we are on the up and up with safety and things of that nature. But I prioritize them number one if they ever come to me. My stuff, I can always get it done. Regardless, I'm here 16, 14 hours a day during the season, so there's time in the day that I can get things done. But if it's ever anything, expectations, things that they have, goals, I will first and foremost take care of them before I do anything myself.
Right. So in regards to expectations, kind of what I'm taking away from what you just shared is everybody just needs to have realistic expectations and just be on the same page. And if those two things are met, anything is possible, right?
Yep.
Okay, perfect.
To
Now,
quote Kevin Garnett, anything is possible.
Anything is possible. That's right, my
I'm
man.
not going to yell at them.
Adidas, right? Wasn't
Yes,
that an
very much
Adidas
so.
poster and things like that? Cool.
Yep.
Now, this is kind of a serious thing, but it's kind of funny, and I just want to ask it. But how would a video coordinator get fired?
The head coach gets fired.
Okay, is that? I mean, that's just kind of like the strength coach and everything else, right?
Realistically,
Okay.
I mean, when a coach is having a bad season or things are going south, the video coordinator is typically connected to the coach.
Right. Okay.
I know some of my buddies who are in college football, and they've connected themselves with the university to basically fortify their job.
Okay.
But I know a majority of the people that are in this position, if the coach gets fired, you're gone.
Wow.
But there's also, like, in a contract, things of that nature, there's a 30-day period to where the new coach, if they hire one in 30 days, or they'll wait till they hire the new coach can interview you, see if they want to keep you on, or you'll move on to another position.
Right. Okay. So yeah, because I have a friend that's in the strength and conditioning Division I world, and that's very similar.
Yeah.
It's like if the coach gets fired, basically the whole strength and conditioning team gets fired as well, and so that's interesting to see that that's kind of the same with your guys' field as well.
Yeah, because a lot of these coaches, what they'll do is they'll come in and clean house. Like, that's what they're told.
Sure.
Like, hey, this is your program, this is your team.
Right.
They'll clean house and they'll bring in their own people so that they feel like they're building their own program.
Right. Okay. Now let's just talk a little bit about values, Chris, because I know being on a base at the Air Force Academy, the cadets here are learning core values and things like that. How important is that for you to kind of continue to reinforce that with the cadets as they come into the video department and they are a part of your team?
Yeah, and the core values are honor, integrity, and excellence above all else. And that's that's what we do preach down here.
Right.
Obviously it's preached up on the hill, but we really hone in on it down here because, they really want this person to be well-rounded as much as we do.
For sure.
And if they don't have those core, morals, core integrity, things of that nature, you're not going to have that person at the academy, and they're probably not going to last here. Truth be told, but it's honesty, excellence above all else, integrity, things of that nature. We really try and instill that into the person, and you see in their third, fourth year that these are pretty hardcore instilled in these kids, and they understand. But everybody's human. Everybody has a couple screw-ups every now and then, and they just need to recollect themselves and refocus is what it boils down to. So.
Beautiful. Now, let's talk a little bit just kind of about in your life personally, because, like you said, once kind of the football season kicks off, it's 14 to 16 hours a day and stuff like that. It's intense. It's all out all the time. So, you're married. You guys have your son Maximus. How do you and your wife kind of balance, if you want to use that word? There's not really balance during the football season, but how do you guys kind of work through your relationship as a husband and wife and kind of keep on the same page, in regards to that when that football season kicks off and you're just like diving full into football and things like that?
Yeah, I mean, at first my wife didn't believe me when I told her I was working 14, 16-hour days at the University of Houston, and that's when we were dating, and she legitimately thought that I was cheating on her because I would come home, leave for work at 3:30 in the morning, be home at 1 a.m., have an hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then sleep, and then go home, or go back to work, and this was the very first, because, she met me in the off season. And then the very first game at the University of Houston, when they opened up in TDECU Stadium, I said, "Hey, come to the game. I want you to experience this." And she was like, "Yeah, okay. I think you're full of BS." And I was like, "Sure." So she showed up, and my schedule at the University of Houston, it was a night game. I think 8 p.m. kickoff. I had to be there at 4. She showed up to the game at, I think, like 7:50, because she always shows up like right at. It's always nerve-ending to me because I want to look up in the stands and see her. So like that puts me calm. So whenever like now she's not at the game, I go like, "Where are you?" She goes, I'm almost there," and I'm kind of nervous. But she got there. I filmed sideline, which she shoot a scoreboard and a sideline shot of the game. I filmed the whole thing. I went down, saw her at halftime, went back up after halftime, and I said. I was shooting her a text during one of the TV timeouts. I said, "After the game, I'm going to grab you, and we have to run 3 blocks back to the facility, and we have to put in the game." And she's like, "Okay, yeah, sure." So the game gets done. I think it was like around 11:30 because we went into overtime. Game gets done. walk over to her and grab her. We go back to the office, and when we get there, I start doing all my stuff. The students leave. It's just me and her.
Right.
And it took me about an hour and a half to get the game, all put together, put it on Dragonfly, which is what we send to all the other schools. And then she's like, okay, we're good to go. And I go, oh no, I have to get this on 2 laptops now. I have to drive this one to the head coach, who lives about 45 minutes away. And then I have to drive this other one to the defensive coordinator, who lives about another 45 minutes away. And she's like, oh. I go, if you want, you can come with me, or you can sleep here. So I left her, and it's probably about 1 o'clock in the morning. I left her, come back, at 3 a.m., she's like, okay, I trust you. Like, you're not cheating on me. And I was like, good. I'm glad we're at an agreement there. But
right.
That's been a huge thing, is having somebody who's understanding of your work and your passion and what you're very passionate about, and knowing what it takes to put in to that. At other places, I will say I have probably put in a lot more hours and things of that nature, University of Houston, University of Wyoming. But here, Coach Calhoun's very understanding about family, which is a huge reason why we came here.
Absolutely.
And he gives me tons of time off in the summer. He says, as soon as you have practice in, there's nothing you need to do. So it's around 6:30, 7 o'clock, I'll get done.
Awesome.
And I'll go home, I'll spend time with her, I'll set, date nights, things like that. We're able to take our wives on one away trip, which is pretty awesome. So she gets to come along. Now, granted, I don't get to really ever spend a lot of time with her because I have to be at the hotel the whole time, but it's just still having her there.
Absolutely.
And having her be with me and being able to sleep with her on the road is a big feeling, instead of coming back at 2, 3 a.m. in the morning, seeing her for an hour, and then coming into work the next day at 6 a.m. so we can get all the games up.
Yeah.
But that's been a big thing for me, especially with having Maximus and having our 2 other children who we lost in miscarriage. That was a big thing, is being able to focus on my family a lot more. But she's very understanding of it, and I've been trying to be home during the summer, like 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock every day. I go pick up Maximus from the daycare on base, and then I'll drive him home and spend as much time with them. And then what I'll do, so I don't get behind in work, is I'll typically work at night, because I'm a night owl. Because I know once my head hits that pillow, I'm out. There's no if, ands, or buts. I'm asleep. It's very annoying to her. She's like, I don't understand how you can just fall asleep so quickly. I'm like, work hard, play hard, babe.
Yep. There you go. So your wife's first name's Heather, right?
Yep.
So what has kind of just been like one thing that Heather's really added to your life? Let's just say personally and then professionally.
Stability, personally, and professionally, she calls me out on my BS. Like, she's the most grounding person when it comes to anything that I do, coaches film wise, creative wise. She's my harshest critic, and when I thought it was myself, it's really her, and I value that in her.
Absolutely.
Because she's a social media, branding, marketing person, and to have her input and stuff on that, it's very rewarding to me, and that's one of the things professionally, I'd say. Cool.
Now, we've mentioned your son several times, Maximus. Anytime that I have a guest that has a child or children, it's really important for me to give them kind of the platform and give them some time just to talk about their kid or their kids, because I don't have any of my own kids, but just family members and being around people that have their own kids, it's for 99.9% of them, it's a game-changing, life-changing, event or moment when they have their first child. So what has kind of this experience with Maximus meant to you and Heather, and just kind of like, even you talking about Kevin and just his impact on your life, and you saying you really hope that you can live up to kind of Kevin, but we all have our own life to live. So just explain and share with myself and the listeners, Chris, just the importance of Maximus, of having a child, and how that's really impacted you and changed your life.
Yeah, and like I said also before that too, we had 2 miscarriages with James and Iris. James was our very first son that we lost, and that's what my tattoo here, the 3/30 2016 when we lost him. But it's the most rewarding thing to have a child, have like a mini you. That's the thing. And but I think the hardest thing I've ever dealt with is having lost 2 children. You always hear about your family and losing loved ones and things of that nature. It's having the people that you've never even met that you knew were going to be a huge impact in your life. And I think that's probably the hardest thing that I've ever had to go through. Not only myself, my wife as well. We're constantly still dealing with things of that nature, grieving. She goes to a therapist, things of that nature, to talk about it, and I go to a therapist as well. If you don't go to a therapist, I don't think you're really doing yourself any type of justice. But it's been something that we've really tried to turn into a positive light with Pay It Forwards, things of that nature. We have little business cards for James and Iris on their birthdays. What we'll do is we'll go around and we'll pay for someone's coffee, we'll pay for some groceries, and then we'll ask the person who's taking the money, please give them this card and see if people will continue to pay it forward. Not only, we don't know if they do or not, but it's just more of the thought and more of just keeping their memory alive. Because, Heather lost her grandfather 4 years ago. I lost my grandpa Hal 3 years ago. And now we think that, not really think, we know they're up there in heaven with, our two grandfathers.
Right,
and we just pray and hope that they've found all one another. They're living their best life together. Because we knew we couldn't give them grandkids here, but we at least know we could give them grandkids in heaven.
Right.
And that's one thing that my wife and I have talked about with Maximus is, when he's old enough to understand, we're going to let him know.
Absolutely.
But there's 2 angel bears in his room that have James and Iris's name on it, and then just other stuffed animals and remnants that we have of James and Iris, so that Max will know that he has 2 older siblings. But Maximus has been a godsend. He had a lot of health complications, came out 3 weeks early, had some kidney reflux disease where he had to get 3 surgeries before the age of 1. And he's now just a little tank. He's 19 months old, as of a couple days ago. And he creates terror. He creates love. He creates energy. He creates a lot of different things that I never have experienced before, but I'm very grateful for.
Absolutely.
And it's a great feeling when I go to the daycare, and I'll purposely open the door super quiet, and I know I probably look creepy as all hell walking into this room with a bunch of kids in the daycare, and I'm like super quiet, and then I'll go, Max, and he'll turn around, this biggest smile on his face, and just run to me, open arms. And one thing I do is, as you walk down the hallway, there's 2 giraffes to your right, and I call them Jeffrey and Jeffrey Jr. from the Toys R Us giraffes. And I videotape it every day that I pick up Max. So I'm going to put together a compilation of all these videos. And he says bye. He gives them loves. He kisses them. He blows kisses to them. And it's just something that with the whole miscarriage thing, a lot of dads don't get to talk about it because a lot of people only ask the moms, which they should.
Right.
But at the same time, too, a lot of dads go through the grieving process and things of that nature, and they're kind of pushed to the side because everybody thinks we're this big, tough, strong guy. But it really hits a lot of dads, and I don't think a lot that's really ever talked about. And I know my wife is, has some things in the works to make miscarriage a more talked about item and things of that nature, but it's something that I wish there was more light on it, because it's 1 in every 4 women in the United States experiences miscarriage. And that is an astounding number to even know. And just the community that Heather's in, it's called the Hope Mommies of Colorado Springs. They all talk to one another. It's a huge group, very therapeutic. But at the same time, too, we have friends that have been, struck by miscarriages and things of that nature. And it's just something that we're very passionate about, and we're very, motivated to help people out with that. So.
Yeah. Now, I want to just touch on this for a minute here, because it's something that you've experienced and Heather. So, and I just firmly believe that, our stories, each of our stories, that's the whole impetus behind the podcast. For my podcast, Chris, is to give people that platform to share their story, so that those who listen will be positively impacted. So I don't believe in luck. I don't believe in all this woo woo crazy stuff. I just believe that as we share our story, there's, especially on the platform of podcasts, there is somebody that is going to listen to this at some point in time. and what you and Heather have experienced and gone through with your miscarriages, and now the blessing of having Maximus, they're gonna be able to relate to this. So I just want you to speak to that person right now, that has just had a miscarriage or is still trying to overcome all of that type of stuff, that life experience. What is something, and specifically just to the dad out there that's trying to work through all this and going through this, what is something that you can share with them right now, Chris, to kind of just help them to move not past this experience or move away from it, but just to kind of embrace it and grow and learn from it?
You need to talk to your loved one. You need to talk to your wife, because they're obviously dealing with the same thing you are, but it's easier for you to get it out than to keep it inside, because if you keep that inside, it is just going to fester and get horrible and worse, and you're not going to be able to deal with it. And then when it does come down to it, you will break down. And I'm speaking of that because I did that. I was full experience. I was trying to be the strong, tough guy for my wife, and it came to a day where she was fine, everything was going good, and I broke down. I think honestly, I'm very emotional, and I think that I'm really in touch with my feelings, but I kept it in, and I broke down for about 3 hours. I didn't know what to do. I started seeing a therapist, started talking about, everything that's happened in my life, everything that's happened with James and Iris, and the more that I talked about it, the easier it became to make it more of a positive light and more shine the awareness and things that need to be known. And yes, dads do affect. It does affect fathers, and it does affect dads in I'd say almost the same effect that it affects the mothers. But the mothers have that more of the maternal connection because they had the child in them. And it's crazy because I would say, if you need someone to talk to, reach out to me. I'm willing to help. I'm willing to do whatever. That's been one of my biggest things. With Maximus, with James, with Iris, is seeing families in pain, seeing people in pain, seeing other babies in pain while being at the children's hospital with Maximus. There's just too much pain in this world, and to be able to help people has been a big thing for me. And like we've talked with Kevin, with my mom, things of that nature, it's something that I really want to do, and I really think if people bonded together in this world to come together through all the monotony and all of the BS that's out there, I think this could be a much better world ultimately. Because everybody complains. Everybody complains. No one does anything. There's very few people that do stuff, and if everybody did something, or if everybody got together and did something, this world would be so much tremendously better. Instead of the Twitter rants and all this other stupid stuff, it's just work together, people.
Absolutely, amen.
We're all here. What the heck are we doing? If I can help anybody, if I could help, a person, a family, a village, whatever, I'm sure as heck going to do it, and I'm going to do anything in my power to do that. And I've done that with my wife. Granted, I forget the trash every now and then, but it's something that we need each other. We've been put on this earth not to all be individuals. Obviously, you're going to be your own individual self. You're going to have your own things. But we're here to work together. That's ultimately the plan. God wants you to work together, So, I don't know. Sorry. I'll get off my soapbox there. But that was just kind of a crazy rant for me, even though I stemmed off it.
It's good, man. It's good.
I'm here to help people. Yeah. And that's what I want to ultimately do.
And that's something, you and I met a couple weeks ago and just kind of chopped it up at a coffee shop, just kind of getting to know each other and things. And that's something that I took away from our conversation is you just told me, hey, Quentin, I just want to help people. And that's the burning desire and passion within my heart is yes, we want to make money. Yes, we want to have security with all that type of stuff. But at the end of the day, take all of that type of stuff away, all the materialistic things away. It's you and I are on that same page of we just simply at the end of the day want to help people. And then, kind of that also that helping, the youth, the next generation, man, that's something that I took away from our conversation. The first one is, Quentin, I just want to help people. And I'm I like this guy. You know what I mean?
No,
because it's so hard to get through all the nonsense with people and figure out this and that. And it's dude, when somebody's just hey man, I just want to help. And I'm connected now with your wife because of her social media.
Yeah.
And her partner Amber, and then you've been helping me with like a personal brand logo, and it's just simple stuff like that. It's just like, man, it's so awesome to meet real people.
Yeah.
So you're a real dude, and you're out there wanting, and you are helping people. So thank you, man, because it's hard to find real people sometimes in this world, So.
Well, and thank you to you too, dude. Like you're honestly, since our conversation and since meeting and talking with you, you're a down-to-earth real dude too.
Thank you. Yeah.
What you're doing with this community, with this podcast, the linking of people, and what you want to do,
right?
That's so motivating. It's so moving to see that. And like you're saying, to find a real person in this world,
right.
Everybody puts on a mask. Everybody puts on a face because they see, I want to be like LeBron James. You can't be LeBron James.
Right.
Are you 6'8" and 250 pounds that can dunk on it? No.
Right.
You have to be yourself and be real. Because ultimately, like we were saying, that's going to make you better off in your overall life. Mm-hmm. You're not going to have to be somebody else. You can be yourself. You can be creative. You can
right.
If you want to sit on the couch and watch TV all day, by God, do that.
Yep.
But just be you. Because you're going to get so much farther in this life, and you're going to feel so much more better about yourself because you're being true to your true being.
Right. Cool. Now, in regards to real people, and I think maybe it has something to do with our Midwest background.
I think so.
Seriously, there's something there, dude. Like, I think it's just like that Midwest connection. I don't know. But speaking of real people, the way that you and I got connected was through a previous 127 Fit podcast guest, James Kircher.
Yep.
And you and him are best friends. If I remember the story correctly, you guys met in college.
Yep.
So just share a little bit, because again, James is a real dude, cool dude. I drove up, whatever, I don't know, he's up north somewhere, like 2 hours away from Colorado Springs to kind of have a podcast conversation with him, and thoroughly enjoyed that. But just kind of share with me kind of your relationship with James, and kind of like he's kind of recently gone through kind of a transformation that I think has really encouraged you and helped you.
Yeah.
So just share a little bit about that relationship.
And you talking about real dudes. James is a real dude.
Yep, for sure.
One of the most amazing human beings I know. And I'm not just saying that because I call him my brother.
Right.
We went to college together. Getting to know James through the years, like we were close in college, but not like super close.
Right.
And I knew he was a hunter. I knew he, grew up in Nebraska, grew up in Colorado. Went to University of Wyoming. We played flag football together. We were mossing people. We were throwing TDs for bombs, whatever.
Probably partied together
too,
right?
Oh my God, yeah. Like
you can't leave that out, right?
Way too much. So, my liver is James to thank for that. But knowing who he was and who he is now, he has changed for the better.
Yeah,
he is an amazing dude. Like that 75 hard he did, he got me onto that. Granted, I lasted 57 days, and I was just like, I can't do it. My body's breaking down. And I know on the podcast, Andy gets on to people and things of that nature. But like, I've taken from that and I've modified it to where it's something that's going to help me. Because ultimately, I think that's what he's trying to do.
Absolutely.
He's trying to make you a better person because with the tools you have inside. And James bought into that 110%, and I did too. And just seeing what he has done with his life as a father, as a husband, as a conservationist, as just a hunter, things of that nature. And, I'm helping him out too with things, his branding and stuff like that. But just knowing James, the relationship that we have is unbreakable. I called him this morning. I call him at least 3 to 4 times a week.
That's awesome,
and
dude.
we just shoot the shit,
Yep.
And we talk about how's your life going, how's your kids. We rarely ever talk about work. You just, when are we going to see one another again? How's your, what are you and Melissa doing? Saw you guys went to Steamboat, looked amazing. Tell me about it. Like,
right.
Reflecting on the things in life,
Yeah.
reflecting on the things that actually matter. And the biggest thing with James, one of the biggest things we connected on was the movie Step Brothers. And I will call him and I'll be like, you curly-headed F, what are you doing right now? Or the whole drum set scene.
Right.
And like, that's how we'll start the conversation every time. And we'll go word for word with the Step Brothers thing. But it's just an unbreakable bond that him and I have. And
Love
to
that.
see the amazing person that he's become really inspired me and really inspires, I think, a lot of people that he doesn't really know.
Right,
But I
right.
think his brand, his person, what he has done with his life just speaks volumes and to more people than I think, like I just said, he'll ever truly know
Yeah,
unless he
yeah.
quantifies it somehow.
For sure. Yeah, and shout out to you, James, because the reason why I'm sitting at the Air Force Academy having this conversation with Chris is because of you. So it's just cool, man. I just love, like you were talking about earlier, Chris, like if we're all just open to each other, willing to help, willing to serve, willing to share, it's like, dude, like, that human connection, that bond, that community, like that is in our DNA, man. Like that's, if you go back and look at our, like, you know, ancestral history and stuff, like we lived in tribes, we traveled together, and we're more connected now in our culture than ever before in human history because of social media, because of the internet, but also we are more disconnected than ever in human history because of social media, because of the internet. I mean, like we were talking about with the young kids, it's all screens and there's no like really like human interaction, connection, eye contact, touch, like all of that stuff is important to the health of a human being and cultures and societies and tribes and all that stuff. So just it's just so awesome when you have, you know, another, you know, if you're a dude, you have another dude. If you're a lady, another lady, you know, a spouse, just one person in your life. For me, it's my mom, but just one person where you can kind of go to and just kind of share everything with,
Yeah.
and they'll just listen and take it in, give you some advice or call you out when that needs to be done. But we need human connection. That's another, you know, big aspect of the 127 Fit podcast. And when I was kind of setting out a year ago to do this, I'm like, I'm going to do it different because I'm a different dude, but I'm going to do it different because I want to meet people. I want to connect with people. I want to provide the greatest listen and value to my guests. And I feel that comes through two human beings sitting in a room or sitting somewhere and just chopping up and talking life, you know?
No, I full-heartedly agree with you on that. I think face-to-face communication, talking to people, learning about their past, their history, whatever they have, not like taking the walls down essentially and learning about that person, not being fake, not putting up you know, stupid BS about yourself. Because I think ultimately what people do is they lie to themselves. Like they lie to themselves and they tell themselves that they're this person when they're really somebody else, and they just need to be honest with themselves.
Yeah, great point. All right, so Chris, we're gonna kind of head towards the finish line. Before I ask the last question, I kind of want to go back to kind of the you know, your career in video and things like that.
Yeah.
So there's going to be some people probably from your end that listen to this, maybe some cadets or some of your coworkers or whatever, but a young person that's out there and they want to, you know, they're going to school to kind of do what you do, they're interested in it. What are a couple steps that are necessary for somebody to kind of walk down your career path, not yours specifically, but just kind of get into the profession of, you know, being a video coordinator and creative director? What does that look like for a young person interested in getting in that?
I think you need to get involved with the areas that you want to be a part of. I think you need to completely submerge yourself in those areas, because the more experience you have and the more, you know-how you have of those areas, I think the better off you're going to be. And ultimately, too, like, a majority of this self-taught. Like I didn't take classes because there wasn't classes. You know, I just went on YouTube and learned how to do a majority of it, which everybody can do now. It's just getting off your butt and actually doing it. You know, with the football video job, that started out as an undergrad at the college, and you don't need to be going to college. You can reach out to your football team, and majority of those people will either have a paid position where you can be paid hourly, or they have like a stipend where they can give you if you're not a student, and you can get into it that way. You know, put in the time, put in the effort, make sure you learn the whole product of what you're working with, how to work the camera, things of that nature. I mean, even me too, I'm still learning on cameras and things of that nature, of photography and video and what I can do and how I can be better about it. But I think ultimately you need to submerge yourself in that culture, submerge yourself in that job field, and try and get the most experience you can out of doing all that before you take the leap and make it a full-time career.
Perfect. Now, you when we met, the first time and kind of just, discuss some different things, and we're kind of getting to know each other, you had mentioned to me that you've had several, individuals working underneath you that, the door opened for them to get head positions and move on to other, universities and things like that. What does that, mean to you, Chris, to have, people that are working for you? You're kind of mentoring them, you're teaching them, they're learning underneath you, and then them be able to kind of step into, let's say, their dream job in this kind of world of videography and things like that. What does that personally mean to you?
It means the world, because I feel like I'm doing something.
Right,
I'm doing something right finally, to pass on my, what I know, how my professionalism, my human skills, things of that nature to somebody else, and have them take it, make it in their own craft, and do what they need to do with it, and go on to other areas. That's huge. Like a girl that I had as a video, she shot creative video at Wyoming. She ended up graduating. She did 4 years at Wyoming, graduated, went and worked for the St. Louis Rams. When the Rams moved to LA, she worked for the Rams in LA, and then she worked for the LA Chargers, and now she is with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Cool.
A kid that I had hired on right as I left Wyoming, I was there for 3-4 months, I think, spring ball with him. Taylor Bailey, he was at the University of Georgia, now he's with the Seattle Seahawks.
Sweet.
Shane Ross, who was a player at the University of Houston, and he worked with me in the video department. He's now a wide receiver coach at Washington State University. It's gratifying to see that. Oh, and most recently, Bo Savage, who was here, at the Air Force Academy, he got a creative director job at the Kansas State University with the Wildcats.
Okay, cool.
He'd only been here for a year, so he was very talented. Josh Freilich, who was here for 2 years, became the creative director here, and then he's now down at Baylor doing graphics. So it's very rewarding to see these people and see what they're doing, and see how they've grown. I like to try and keep in touch with these people and make sure that they're doing well. And if there's ever anything I can do for them, just let me know. I'll try and help them out. So.
Love it, man. Love it. All right. So before I get to the last question, Chris, is there anything that I didn't ask you, or any subject or topic, or kind of some final words that you want to leave with the listeners that you just kind of want to put out there?
Honestly, like, the one thing that I've really liked with my podcast that I've done, and one thing I wanted to do with you. Are you okay if I ask you a couple questions?
Yeah, go for it,
okay.
Man. I'd love it.
So, what is your main driving force behind this podcast? Because I know between the two of us, you want to help people, but what is your overall collective goal that you want to do? Because I know we've talked about it, but I want people to know about it.
Absolutely.
Because if people know about it, then I feel people can help you with that too.
Right. Great question. I love just the whole thing, because now that you said that, I was like, oh yeah, he does do that on his podcast. So great question. And the whole the end goal, the end everything in regards to my life and the podcast and 127 Fit and all of that stuff that's kind of Quentin Vars. The end game is to open up a school called Free Range on the Front Range, and it will be a school that will start and then we will build out through movement. So being a public educator and things of that nature, I see just the lack of movement, the lack of proper nutrition. There's just a lot of issues in the public education system in America, and exactly what you were talking about earlier. There's all kinds of people out in the world that are talking. Very few people are walking, actually doing. I'm a big proponent of that. So if I see an issue and if there's something that I believe I can do about it and I'm passionate about it, then I had better take some action.
Yeah.
So that is kind of the end game of the podcast, of the the networking, the connecting with the like-minded health and fitness people through the podcast. On 127 Fit, everything falls underneath. At some point, I will, with the help of other people, open up a school, and I don't just want to open up one school and in Colorado Springs, but I want to open up multiple schools around the country and start a public education revolution, because my two passions in life, Chris, and any listeners that have listened to a few episodes, are fitness and youth. The gift of fitness was passed on, to me through a man named Ralph Kroger, and it radically changed my life. And I want to take that gift of fitness that was given to me and pass it on to the next generation. And so through education, through, changing the educational system in America, it needs to start with movement. Why movement? Because all of the research and science makes it very clear, if we are not moving as human beings, then we are not going to reach our full potential as a human being. That's mentally, that's physically, emotionally, spiritually. Movement, just like human connection we were talking about a few minutes ago, is in our DNA. Yep. We need to be moving in order to reach our full potential. And so if we want our kids to be the best versions of themselves and to change the world and all that type of stuff, we need to be educating our kids, through movement. They need to be moving, so that they can, be as smart as they can be. And again, go back to that whole thing of reaching their potential. So
no, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I know you have an overall, plan of what you want to do.
But
I think very few people, other than the people you've podcasted with, know that. So
to
have that out there, it's almost speaking it into fruition.
Absolutely,
and that's an amazing thing to even have out there, and for people to hear that and people to come around and help, especially like we're saying, like-minded people get together and do things of that nature. My other question was, I know you had talked about having like meetups and things of that nature. So what is the likelihood of doing something like that, to where you have former guests on your podcast that you think could help people and they can network together, so you have this community to thus then propel into your movement?
Absolutely.
I guess academies and things of that.
So that's another part of this vision, because one of the things that I want to be remembered for is being a super connector. I want people to say, they're sitting and having a drink or something and talking to their buddy, like, man, how did we even get connected? Oh yeah, I was on this podcast with that Quentin guy, and oh yeah, me too. And I just want people to be like, how did we connect, or how did this group of people connect? Oh, it was through Quentin. Not for any like recognition for myself or glory for myself, but I just want to bring people together. Going back to what we were talking about, that's in our DNA. I've lacked that for a lot of years in my life, and I want to be connected with people to positively impact the world. So another aspect, and I've shared this with some of my previous guests, and maybe some of the listeners know this too, but probably next spring, because I'm stepping into a position professionally at a new school this year. That's a huge opportunity for me. So once kind of the school year kicks off, I've got to be all in with that. I'll continue to podcast and things like that. So a realistic expectation would not be this fall, but by next spring, or maybe next summer, or next fall, I'm going to have some of you listeners reach out and help me out. Probably some of you female listeners, because this isn't really my thing, but I would really like to probably in Denver, because that's where a lot of my guests come from and come out of. I like to have kind of a gathering, have some of my podcast guests kind of share their story, maybe just, get up and speak, give a little, motivation, things like that. But I'd really like to bring all of my podcast guests together, and just have like an evening where we kind of network, connect, people kind of introduce themselves. Maybe we'll have people kind of broke up in groups where like, hey, here's some personal trainers, here's the financial advisors, here's some professional ultra runners, here's some physical therapists, chiropractors, whatever, coaches, this group of people can really interact, network, connect, and say, oh yeah, I'm in Denver. Oh, I'm in Denver. Hey, I need this done. And I just really am going to, with the help again of other people, build a powerful community, the 127 Fit community, through the podcast, through this networking. But that's another aspect of really have like maybe an annual kind of gathering of all these podcast guests, and like plus one, like a spouse or a friend or something, bring us all together and just spend time connecting, because it's really hard, Chris, to have a conversation with somebody on a podcast and then stay connected, because we've all got full lives. A lot of my guests have are married and they have families, and they're killing it in the entrepreneurial space and traveling around the world, and so it's hard to kind of stay connected. But if we could really get a date down, it's like every year the 127 Fit family comes together and we just have an amazing, powerful night. Like, that's another part of this movement that will happen in time.
I think that's amazing, because I don't know, just the marketing brain in me and things of that nature. I'm like, well, maybe you have it January 27th, or maybe you have it like at 127 on a certain day,
love it,
things
man.
of that nature. No, ultimately I just wanted people to be able to hear your vision and hear your ideas and your thoughts, because I feel a majority of the time, like, you're asking people the questions, you're asking people that. So that was my ultimate thing that I wanted to do for
love
you.
that, man. Thank you.
And you're very welcome. And I just want to let people know, like, if you listen to this podcast, tell 3, 4, 5 other people to listen to this podcast as well, because not only will it affect you, it will affect those others around you, and it'll continue just a domino effect for this podcast, for this movement, for this community. And I think that's going to be something to where you can be helping other people, not only like by talking to them, but by giving them an outlet or something to be able to listen to others and connect with others in that way.
So. Well, thank you, dude. I love that, and you are not paid to say that, so I appreciate it, man. So, all right. So the last question, Chris, and then we're gonna kind of go into the outro here, is what sets your soul on fire?
My family.
Your family? Beautiful.
My
Beautiful,
family
man.
sets my soul on fire.
Yep.
They're everything I'm here for. They're the ones that I put on pants for every day. Go to work with my hard hat and my lunch bucket.
Yep.
They're the ones that I'm doing this all for.
Beautiful. All right, cool. So, listeners, thank you so much for hanging out with myself and Chris on the 127 Fit podcast. Now, Chris, before I kind of close things out here and kind of put the final wrap up on things, if somebody wants to reach out to you, if somebody wants to connect with you, if somebody wants to find out more about kind of the Air Force Academy and kind of the video stuff and all of that, where can people contact you?
Yeah, definitely. You can follow me on Twitter. It's CM1984. So Charlie, and then Moo for like the cow. I don't know the phonetics. I probably should know them, being a Department of Defense base, but it's CM1984 on Twitter. On Instagram, it's Houston C. Miller, like Houston, the city. C is in Chris, and then Miller. And then I also have a website that you can go to if you guys have anything that you need, video, photos, anything of that nature. Just want to connect. It's www.chrismillermedia.com. Again, that's www.chrismillermedia.com. And yeah, reach out to me any way possible. Like I said, I'm here to help people. I'm here to try and help make the world better along with Quentin, and it's just something that I'm very passionate about.
Love it, man. So, Chris, thank you so much for sharing your passion, your heart, your time, and your story on the podcast, man.
Well, thank you very much, and
cool.
Good luck to you. And we'll be talking to you.
Yeah, we'll be staying connected. That's for sure. So, listeners, again, thank you so much for hanging out and listening to the 127 Fit podcast. If you'd like to follow along, kind of the 127 Fit journey, find out more about the guests that I've had on and things like that, you can find me, the podcast, at 127 Fitness on Instagram. My personal account is at QVars. Facebook is at Quentin Vars. And if you guys would do me a huge favor and the podcast a huge favor, and please leave a 5-star rating and review, that would be great. Also, I recently found out that above the ratings and the reviews, podcast subscriptions is actually more valuable and more important to more listeners getting to your specific podcast. So please leave a 5-star rating and review, but also hit that subscribe button. That would be great. I'd really appreciate it. If you think you would be a great guest, or if you have a friend or an acquaintance that you think would be a great guest or guest, please send me an email. That email is 127fit@gmail.com. Tell me a little bit about yourself, or take that email, pass it on to that friend or that acquaintance, and just let them know. They just need to reach out to me, send a little email, and we will go from there. If you are finding value in this podcast, in the guests that I'm bringing on to the podcast, the stories that you're hearing, which I know you're finding value in this podcast, you're finding value in the guests that I'm bringing on, you're finding value in the stories that they're sharing, their stories that they're sharing, would you please also share, as Chris mentioned a few minutes ago, share the episode or the episodes that you're finding that value in. That, again, is a great way, just to build this 127 Fit family and community. It's a great way to get more listeners tuned in the podcast. It's a great way for more people to get positively impacted through people's stories, through my guest stories. So share the episode or the episodes on your Facebook and Instagram stories. Then please use the hashtag #BeSomeoneToFollow. And then per the usual, I will leave you with Proverbs 24:10, which states, if you faint in the day of adversity, your strength is small. This time, until next time, I will catch you guys later.